All right. Welcome, everybody, to Tuesday here at Knox Makers. Every Tuesday for 12, 13 years now, we do our show and share. That's where people come up, show their projects, things you're working on, things you've completed, want to show off, or maybe you've failed at your project and want to talk about that too. We like to hear it all. We do have a sign-up sheet as you came in for what you want to show off. So I'm just going to go down the list and start with Rich, who's going to show VoiceOver Studio 1 versus 2.
Use this thing here. All right, so one of the wild hairs I got up my butt at one point was like, I want to be a voiceover actor. And so I went down the rabbit hole and learned all about it. Decided I was going to build myself a studio. So I did. And looked it up and found all measurements and plotted it out. And I enlisted some help. And built it. Something happened here. Sorry, there we go. Built it. Better? All right. So that's a 4x4, eventually. It was a 4x4 frame. And it was kind of small, but it worked. Problem was, once I got the acoustic blankets hung up, I did some sound tests, and what's called a noise floor, like when nothing's going on, what is the ambient noise in the room, right? It was too much. Here's a clue. Kingston Pike is close by. Guess what runs parallel to Kingston Pike a lot of the time? Well, I-40 is also very close by. That sound wafted right up the hill to my house. So, crap. What am I going to do about that? You go to Home Depot. And started drawing up a plan. And these are airtight sketches, by the way, architectural just perfection. I had a little cavity under our stairs where we called it the panic room, laughingly, because I just built a little frame there, so it wasn't obvious there was something back there, and we threw all our junk back there. So now I have panic room studios as a result of that. But I started looking at it like, okay, what can we do with this? There's a lot of junk and junky areas and whatnot, so maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. I had power lines running through there. I had water lines running through there. Water makes noise. Power, not so much. However, dogs and children and wives do make a lot of noise. Here's the inside of that wall I mentioned. There was a light switch and an outlet, and that's about all that was in that room. So I dismantled all that stuff, took it down to studs, discovered that there was very little to no insulation in the walls. Lovely. Enlisted more help, watching her work. Ended up using rock wool as an insulator, which is a really great insulator, and something called silverback, which is another insulator. So I actually had rock wool and then silver and then drywall. So that's a very effective sound block. It's not sound treatment, but it's sound blocking. So now the noise floor crept down to way more than acceptable. That's that silverback stuff. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll kind of just zoom through here. Everyone loves drywall, I know that. And let me just say that I also just love doing drywall. It cemented my love again. That's an acoustic blanket rolled up on the floor. You can ask me about that at some point. Had to build a new soffit, which was not as beefy as the old one, because it didn't need to be beefy. It's just a tiny little soffit. Trim and carpeting and hanging those acoustic blankets to treat the space. I had to build a wall to put a door in because it wouldn't sit there by itself, apparently. And there's the finished dealio. So I've gone through professional engineering acoustic tests of the room, both silent and doing narration. And connectivity is a hard requirement for this kind of stuff, so you can't use Wi-Fi. And so part of this process was actually learning how to run cable, and I ran cable the length of the house and ran it into that little room out of the studio. So passed that test with flying colors and should have a demo coming out next month.
Where can we hear your talent?
Eventually, richardleevoiceover.com. The website's been up for about a year because I'm an old web nerd, but the demo has not been up. If you know the Knoxville History Project, I narrated an episode of that somewhat recently.
How long,
I thought I saw a hand.
how long did that take you to do that?
Too long? To build it, probably about 3 months on and off, figuring stuff out, kind of retracing a couple steps.
So the lifeblood of the whole system, what kind of microphone do you like to use?
I'm using a Rode NT1 into a Motu M2 interface. And every engineer I've talked to, they're like, oh, that's good, that's fine. You know, it's not top of the line, but it's also not crap. Once I make some money back, I'd like to engage in better equipment, but until then, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. All right, next up we have Neil with Ulu cutting board. Did I say that right? Ulu.
Well, like most woodworkers, I accumulate a lot of wood. And whenever cutting up a board and it has a strip of 1 inch or more, I usually have a barrel, I stick it in. And eventually when I have enough of those, I glue it all up into another board. And then when I have another board, I usually have a project where I cut it down to a certain length, and then I have little scraps left over all over again. And one of the things that I've done with all the little scraps is I'll cut them up into about 1.5 inches length, and then I'll glue them all up again, and I will get a type of a cutting board. And let's see. A little bit like a butcher block. So these, I usually have a good number of these available for me to play with. And then not too long ago, I got, if you're not familiar with what an ulu knife is, it's something that the Eskimos use. They carve up a lot of whale blubber and other things with it. And it's a curved blade. I have the tape on here right now because it is a very sharp edge on this thing. And what I liked about it, since I don't have a lot of whale meat or walrus meat to cut up, what I did was carve a depression in here, not carve, but actually I put it on a lathe, and I turned a depression in here, and it matches the curve of the ulu, and that way I can use it for chopping nuts. But then just because I like things to be more functional than just one thing, turn it over and it's flat, and if I should be lucky enough to get a hold of some walrus meat, I'll be able to cut it up like a normal ulu would do. And that's it. These, by the way, if you want to get into something like an ulu knife, they do have them for sale at Woodcrafters, and then you can find them on Amazon. That's U-L-U, ulu. And I find it's a pretty interesting way to cut things instead of just using a knife. Part, sanding. Yeah, that's why I make these, that's why you'll only see these ulu boards small, because my sander is only so wide. And I do hate sanding, yes. This side, the side that's been cut out for the curvature of the blade, that's easy because that's sanded on the lathe. But everything else is pretty much done first on a 6-inch belt sander, and then with an random orbital sander to finish it off. And it is finished with walnut oil, which is one of my favorite finishes for anything that's going to be in contact with food, because it's one of the, actually it may be the only vegetable oil that does not turn rancid. So it's a great finish for wood products that are going to be in contact with food. Any other questions? All right, I'll pass this around so you can get a better look at it. Please do not pull the tape off. That blade is sharp.
Thank you, Neil. All right, next up is Chuck with a leather bag.
We'll be able to see this in front here, will we? This is just something I threw together over the last 3-4 weeks. It's just a simple bag, leather bag. I don't know if y'all can see this. Is that good? Yeah. But it's got pigskin liner. And then, I don't know if you can see this inside, there's a zipper on the inside with all the hardware. Here. Brian helped me do the sewing on the shoulder sleeves here. But other than that, it's pretty simple. It's just 3-4 material. And the main thing that's hard about this is the double loop lacing. This is really, this is really hard. I found out the hard way. It was really hard.
Is that hand, the lacing hand?
Oh, this is all hand. Yeah, it took me almost 12 hours to hand lace all this, and it took a while. Yeah, because this is. And all the holes were punched. I had to punch everything by hand. Nothing's pre-done. This is all cut out of a big sheet of leather. And I had to, everything's hand punched. This is all hand done, hand sewn. Everything on here was hand sewn except for the straps here. And I got Brian with the sewing machine to help me to do that, because I could have done it by hand, but tell you the truth, that'd have been another 4 or 5 hours. And I just didn't want to do it. But like I said, I like to do things by hand, but some things I just have to sew by the machine.
How many hundreds of those are you going to produce?
One. Have 100. No, I'll probably make another one. I've got another one I want to make like this. But the liner, instead of being this pigskin here, instead of being black, it's going to be kind of a rustic color, and I'm thinking about dyeing this purple. So I still don't know what I'm going to do exactly. Any other questions? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
What weight
Oh, the weight, this is 4-5 ounce, I think, if I ain't mistaken. I was going to use another one, the 3-4, but that was just, it was just a little bit too flimsy. And I figured this would be better because it's a little bit more durable, and it's going to last for a long time. Like I've got, yeah.
On the lacing, did you use something to space the holes, or did you just?
No, when I cut this piece out, and then I cut the front part here out, I just laid them down. I laid this down on top of it, took my punch, and marked it on this side, marked it on this side, then went from there. And then the side piece, I done the same thing. I just lined it up on this, and then I matched the pattern around that on this side and this side. Like I said, it took me a day and a half just to lay everything out, just punching holes in it. But it's, like, that's why it took me a month. It shouldn't took me no more than 2 weeks to do that, but it took me a month. Anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, next up is Wes, who's going to show a French cleat organization, work in progress.
Hello. So last week I decided to make some boxes from the laser cutter, and I cut everything out, got it all done, and then decided to add some words to make it easier. Hopefully I can get a good part in here. A little tough to see just how bad it is, but there was no protection on it when I first put the acrylic on it. I had actually added something called Floetrol. I'd never heard of it before, but I put in far too much, and it seeped actually all the way inside the wood. It never came out the other side, which is kind of nice, but it certainly did get all the way through there. I put like 4 applications of it in the very beginning, and it just kept seeping into it. And then just today, I went ahead and did another application, but with a lot less Floetrol, and it worked a little bit better, but still not really full. Obviously, it's bleeding over on the top, which I would just sand that off and stuff like that. But my goal is to try to fill it in, make it look nice and neat and everything like that. So if anyone has any suggestions on what material to use, this is or what kind of protection to use. I used shellac for this one here, and then put it on, and then this one has no shellac on it. So I wanted to compare them and stuff. But if anyone has any suggestions on how to seal the wood after you've done a laser cutter or laser cut them out, I would appreciate it. Yes.
Did you put a sealant like shellac or polyurethane over it before you laser cut it?
You can, sure. It'll obviously get the top, but then once you laser cut it, now you've got the inside of the wood.
Which is the part that you want to put the inlay?
Yeah, the inlay part. So I actually had, because I used the hatch fill, I just scraped off the pieces of the wood that was cut, and then got to a bare portion of it in the blue tape part. Added the acrylic in there with too much Floetrol, and it just went everywhere basically. And so a lot less Floetrol next time, I think, but maybe not even any, and just kind of see where it goes from there. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Next up is Sue with the iron board cover. Yeah, it is your turn.
Hi, everybody. I thought I'd try and share tools I'm making now, as well as sewing projects. So I have an old ironing board that I got from my ex-mother-in-law. And I knew it was like 1950s. The sticker was still on it, so I was able to research it. And it is a Mary Proctor ironing board. I love the way this ad is reading. It's quite interesting. As I was doing further research on it, I also found that the lining was possibly made out of fiberglass, which is guaranteed to never burn. So after I got the existing liner off of it, this was the label, and I find it really interesting. I know all of us have those mattresses and it has the labels, do not remove. Well, interestingly, this one down here in the corner says, well, maybe you can't see it with this orientation, but it says remove this label. So it is a 1950s, so that would make it, what, a 70-ish year old ironing board. So as you can see, it has rusted a bit. One of the reasons why I liked it is because of this decal. It's called a single flip. So I can have a rectangular shaped ironing board, and by just flipping this, I can make it to have a point. So I can do the shirt sleeves still, but I can have it rectangular to do quilting. And doing the research, I also found that this particular ironing board not only had that flip, but it had another one to make it, instead of 14, make it 16 inches deep. That would have been nice too, but I'll take what I've got. So I wanted to show you some before pictures. This is what it looks like before. So you can see the rectangular. That's the back side. Not real pretty. It was makeshift after the other ironing board cover kind of gave up the ghost. I had some leftover baby quilt, 100% cotton, that I had put on it, scrap, and then I covered it with this cloth and a couple safety pins. So it's sort of like the car with the duct tape and the baling wire. It worked just fine for me. But I wanted to go ahead and get a fabric to cover it. And I chose this plaid, and I chose it so that I could get lines, straight lines, so I could iron strips and keep them straight. Or I can kind of square up, because as you're ironing, you can get your quilting squares out of square. So that's why I chose that. One reason why I took this picture is one would assume that the printer would print on the fabric evenly. But as you can see in the picture, I lined up the strips. It's a little bit off there from one end to the other. So, but it was one of the better ones that I found at the fabric store. I wanted to put elastic on it, and I don't know if you remember in one of my prior shares I talked about elastic, and I didn't want to get it caught in pleats that I put in the corners. So I used this trick to do just not one corner, but two, because it was a triangle piece there. I ran my elastic in it. Here's a picture before. Well, it's still kind of there because I haven't replaced this, what appears to be fiberglass mat. Although it has a lot of rust on it, it, true to its name, does not have any burns, just rust. And I wanted you to see the pattern of how it can move. I overestimated the length of elastic I needed for it, but I had used this, it's called buttonhole elastic over in Fiber Arts. It was extra. Who needs elastic 11-inch strips? I can just sew them all together. I'll just use some scraps. And there's the finished product. Now, before you ask me how long it took, I will volunteer. It took me 3 hours today. But I can tell right now I need a little more fret time on it because, as you can see, it's not lined up anymore, and that's going to drive me crazy. Yeah. So I was doing it in a hurry. My other half came back and said, "Are you ready to go?" So I did get it finished and got one last picture. Any questions? Yes?
So do you sit down while you iron?
I don't. But that might be the next ironing board project. Yes?
Did it relieve your drudgery?
It's going to make me smile every time I go back there because I'm going to have something straight to iron with. That's for sure. Yes?
Was the original cover a drawstring or all that?
To be honest, when I got it from my mother-in-law, if I remember, it was a draw, and it was actually a string. And it was the Teflon coating, and it was so old, the Teflon, the silver was all kind of granulated, and you could see the white cloth underneath. And I'd put another top on it, and it didn't fit really well. It was a pretty bad job, if I have to say it myself. But yeah, so I did some research. They do actually sell covers for this board. Yeah, $65, but you can find them, and they are drawstring. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Last up on the list is Bob. with a charcuterie board.
Okay, let's see, where am I? How does this work? There's a zoom button, right? Why didn't it tell him? I don't know which way to go here. There we go. Okay. There we go. A while back, I showed some photos of some cherry burl I had bought. There was a lot of faces, a lot of things that looked like faces to me anyway, 2 eyes and a mouth or something like that. Well, I finally got around to finishing some of the cherry burl into charcuterie boards, and this is one of them. I don't know if you can see it too well, but they had some pretty odd shapes to them. I had to build a form and put them in there and then pour some epoxy to really kind of make it a usable board. And just wanted to show you a few of those. That's the same one. This was one that I didn't really add any epoxy to. I was just able to put some handles on it, and it was pretty usable. Let's see. I guess that's the same one we just saw. Sorry, I'm not really great at showing these pictures, but anyway, that's pretty much all I've got. Just wanted to show you my cherry burl charcuterie board with an epoxy fill. Yes, questions?
What was the brand of epoxy that you used?
I used the high end from Walmart, the Alumilite. You can buy it by the quart at Walmart in their craft section. It's a deep cast epoxy. So they say you can pour it up to 2 inches, but all my stuff's about 1 inch. Question in the back.
Where are you sourcing your wood?
Facebook Marketplace. I found a guy in Clinton who was selling these. He had 2 cherry burl slices. They were about 4 feet long each. So I got four cutting boards, or four usable pieces out of what he sold me. So yeah, I you know, all over. I like Jeffries though. Jeffries Wood Works has a lot of good stuff. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
That is the last of the list. Do we have anybody else last minute? Yeah.
Well, you all can thank Miss Leakey for me coming up here. She prompted me to try and share my little device I created. First, I'd like to share a little bit of a premise of what I was trying to do and what I've done so far. What I've done so far is that I've created a doggy door monitoring system. It tells me when the dog goes in or out of the doggy door. I got tired of looking for my dog in the house. I'm like, okay, so I got to figure out how to track him somehow or another. So naturally, I put sensors on the door and a wireless card on the door and made it update the server, and now it tells me. And so that's what I've got so far. What I'm ultimately going to try and do is correlate weather along with this data. So whenever it's raining and Roscoe goes outside, it'll say, oh, watch out, it's raining outside, bring a towel for Roscoe or something like that. So I don't love my dog or anything. I really don't. I really don't. But this is kind of a sudden presentation. So just give me 1 second while I get it in order here. I've made like a little simple little playlist. I'm trying to get the screen to go a little bit wider for you guys. So So, oh, there we go. Yeah, that's better. Okay, here we go. All right, now. And then I got the NeoPixel, it turns green. It looks like C4s is strapped to the door, but it's not. And so yeah, I've got it going for both inside and outside. And so the little red dots right there, that's the efficient way for, it's not really distracting, but it still lets me know in the long term what's going on, what happened. So I don't want to be working, because I've got this on top of my work screens. I don't want to be watching Roscoe's inside all the time. So I just figured out, just add light up a couple matrices and call it a day. So yeah.
So the trigger for it, is it the door flapping itself, or is there something that it hits against and it knows that it's open?
It's a binary sensor. It's like it's just like a little flippy switch kind of thing. I'll see if I can pull it up for you here real quick. Let's see if let's see.
I was curious how you account for the door flashing back and forth.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes another
Oh,
trouble
yeah.
trigger.
Yeah. I've got it. Let's see if I can zoom in for you a little bit. There we go. Well, I can't move it. Wow. Anyways, come on now. Go left. Anyways, well, I've got a little sensor on the door.
So currently, the system doesn't differentiate between Roscoe and a raccoon?
It does not. But that raccoon, that'll be his last mistake, I assure you.
Roscoe's sensor next to it says Roscoe's outside. Wait. Just came in.
Radio systems? No, I haven't. The only radio systems I've got is just Wi-Fi at the house.
No, sorry, there's a company, Radio Systems. They do invisible fencing and all sorts of related electronics. And they probably would be interested in this once you
Yeah,
adapted it.
yeah. I've thought about a simpler, simplified version where it could be a little bit more advanced and it wouldn't require any Wi-Fi signal. So that could very well be possible. Yes. Yeah.
Does it get out of sync when you let Russ go out the people door and he comes back in the outdoor?
I anticipated that. I created a web page where it sets the default values to the exact opposite of Roscoe's current status. All I have to do is hit submit, done.
Roscoe's accounted for.
Since I don't know a lot about electronics, but would it be possible for Roscoe to wear a collar that would open the door when he gets close
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
to keep Roscoe raccoon out?
The imposters out, keep the imposters out, only King Roscoe, Prince Roscoe. Yeah, that could be done. Could probably do an RFID tag. Probably might be able to read the chip, but I don't know. Probably NFC kind of stuff, probably. Could probably do that.
Is Roscoe inside right now or outside?
That, I don't know. I thought about making it tweet, though. Thought about making it tweet.
How does Roscoe feel about you tracking him so closely?
Well, he should be honored and privileged that I watch his movements so closely. I even log the time and date, too. So, yes, I can do metrics on. Thank you.
Very cool. All right, any more last minutes? Yes, come on up.
I have no idea how to work this thing. So, how do I zoom out? Oh, I think I got it here. It's almost like it's my first day. So this ends up being copper my. It's hard to see on here, but
Move the little sign out of the way with your white background.
well, so it's hard to see that, but there's copper in the blade. Let me see if I can zoom in. Actually, now I figured out how to use this thing. Nope, didn't do any better. So that one's got some copper in it. It's ADCR V2 core. So if you look on this side, you'll actually be able to see it on the handle a little bit better. The center steel's ADCR V2. Then you have those two dark lines, which are your copper. Then your outside's 1084. And then that's swordfish bill handles. I thought I was a genius going online, saw no one else had used swordfish bill before. Now I know why. They're hollow. So you only get like that one out of 3.5 feet of material. So, you know, you live, you learn. Now see why I'm not as genius as I thought. But that one took probably somewhere around 24 to 36 hours. If you count the fact I got a little bit more of copper my with that billet and then used it on another knife. But it took somewhere around that amount of time. And it's about all I got for it. So anybody have any questions? Cool, that made that easy.
All right, any more? Going once, twice? All right, so we have several events on the calendar coming up. Tonight, after show and share, is new member onboarding. If you've not been to one before, this is a requirement for membership here. Everyone has to go to a new member onboarding. So come and be part of that, learn more about Knox Makers, what we're about. Let us meet you. Then tomorrow at 6:30 is embroidery off. I didn't check to see whether there was any tickets left. Are there? There are tickets left, so if you're interested in the embroidery machine, there's an authorization class required for that. So tomorrow is one, get that ticket. Sunday at 2 is an intro to digital processing Ray's going to put on, I believe. And then that same day at 6:30 is a lock picking 101. It's been a while since we have a lock picking class, so make sure you get your ticket there. Then next Tuesday, after show and share, we're going to have a Tuesday talk on hacking pavo tubes. I hope someone can correct me on how to pronounce that. Ray's going to talk about reverse engineering pavo tubes and how he got it to work with a keyboard. And then the next Wednesday is an intro to soldering class. Those are the classes in this week and next, so grab your tickets for those. Some announcements. There's a reminder to keep the walkways clean and free of debris. That's been a kind of a problem lately, so make sure you don't leave anything in the walkways. Also, check your storage. It's starting to be noticed and a problem that you have a set amount of space to keep your stuff in. If it goes beyond the shelf, that stuff might be going away. So just check your storage, make sure you have nothing out in the hallways outside of your storage area. Coming up is the Maker Market on October 1st. If you're interested in volunteering and helping with that, we have a channel on Mattermost. Make sure you join it. We'll have more opportunities to get involved and volunteer on that day. Can we get volunteers for the trash and the filters? Maybe someone, yep, all right. We'll give you, what do you want, trash or filters? Filters, all right. Who wants trash then? All right. If someone wants to help, he does it quite a bit. So, all right. With that, if you are new here, come to new member onboarding. But also, if you want a tour, see somebody with a red badge, we'll get it taken care of, answer any questions you have. With that, that's it.